Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode of Daily Palantir, I will be reacting to the infamous video that my good friend Tickle Symbol U. I'm not going to edit this. Ticker Symbol U, even though Tickle Symbol U is very funny. He put out a video. Title is Palantir is Doomed. I saw the video already, but I want to react to it in real time here today. Ticker Symbol U is a good friend of mine. I like Ticker Symbol U. His real name is Alex, and we talk. We're good friends. He got Foundry a while ago, and Palantir kind of gave it to him. That's why he couldn't make videos anymore, and just like tested it, used the platform. He used to work at, he's graduated from MIT, and I think he worked at NASA as like a rocket scientist or something. So the guy is a very technical guy. He understands data. He is not the most bullish as he was on Palantir from a couple of years ago, before he really got to understand the tech and the platform. And it's not that he's not bullish on the tech and the platform, it's that he's not that bullish on the go-to-market strategy that they have. So I want to react to this video, give you guys my thoughts, pause it in between on the stuff I agree or disagree with him. Overall, Ticker Symbol U is a good friend of mine, and so now we're going to understand kind of what's going on. I'm going to start it at the 6-minute 2022 part, because that's where he actually talks about his concerns around competition. But yeah, let's react to Ticker Symbol U. I want to say Tickle Symbol U now. And what he has to say about Palantir. I know this was a video that got a lot of people's attention, and then we will get into it from there. Here we go.
Look, no one is debating that Palantir makes some of the best AI-powered software platforms in the world. But being the best is not how companies dominate a market, which is a big problem for Palantir because that seems to be their entire market strategy.
So, by the way, I do agree with this argument that you can't just be the best and you have to have a different strategy in terms of taking your good product to the market. But I disagree with how he's going to frame what Karp says here. So let's listen to that.
During that earnings call, you said, we have no pricing strategy. We're going to create a lot of value. We're going to get hundreds of customers, and we will price it as we go. Have you made any progress on pricing strategy since that point?
No. Why? Okay,
Why so relaxed about it?
Because it's like one of these things. Like when you go to a bar, you know everyone wants to meet you. Do you have a pricing strategy when you go to the bar? No. You're like, oh, I'm cool. I know we have the best product on the market. I know customers will pay us fairly. I know that it's much more valuable than anyone will understand until they install it. And we will sort out. We are going to create a lot of value, and we're going to get some portion of that value. And customers are smart. They'll pay you some portion of the value. Why should I, just as an axiomatic thing, if you have a software product, you always want to get paid after you deliver value. If you've got a PowerPoint, something that doesn't work, something that's not valuable, you want to get paid before you create value. We know it's valuable. We know it's much more valuable than people understand. We know we're going to continue to augment that value, and we're going to get paid along the way.
Now, what Karp says here before he talks is really important to understand, right? Karp is making a very simple argument here, an argument that shouldn't be that hard to understand, which is that in the software enterprise sales business, you should be paid for the value that you provide. And historically, that's not been the case. Historically, it's, hey, pay me first, then I give you the product. When it comes to AI enabling transformative experiences for the enterprise, his argument is if clients are going to invest millions of dollars into something to change everything about how they operate, how marketing, sales, finance talk to each other, all this stuff to make them more efficient, higher revenue, better margins, then they should get the value first. And Palantir has a different sort of approach than a lot of software companies. I think that is why they are a product-focused company at the end of the day. And so I don't disagree with Karp here. The reason they got the NHS deal is because they charged them €1 back in 2020 for their services. They performed very well. Then they got a €25 million deal. Then they got 30 million, and then eventually they got a $480 million deal. And they won a massive contract that is going to open up a lot of opportunities over the next decade, because they basically gave them the work for free because they knew they could provide the value first. That is just like a freemium model that is very simple to understand. And I don't think that's necessarily the worst go-to-market approach. So let's hear what Alex has to say about that.
The thing is, superior products almost always end up losing to inferior products with better branding and distribution, better pricing, lower switching costs, or are just plain easier to use. That's because it's not the technology inside the product that matters. It's the product market fit. And if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe Steve Jobs.
You've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology. You can't start with the technology and try to figure out where you're going to try to sell it. And I've made this mistake probably more than anybody else in this room. And I've got the scar tissue to prove it. And I know that it's the case. And as we have tried to come up with a strategy and a vision for Apple, it started with what incredible benefits can we give to the customer? Where can we take the customer? Not starting with, let's sit down with the engineers and figure out what awesome technology we have, and then how are we going to market that?
I know.
I'm sorry here, but I think that clip is misplaced. That clip, quite literally to me, is exactly what Karp is saying. Let's start with the customer first. What did Karp just say? Hey, customer, here's the product. You take it for free. I mean, I don't know how Karp is not sounding like Steve Jobs here. Instead of saying, yeah, we're going to work out some enterprise sales agreement, but he's like, no, here's a boot camp where we have a go-to-market strategy, and we'll talk about boot camps in a second, where the customer gets to know the product. Hey, customer, you like the product? Take the product. Keep it for a couple months. Then you pay us. That, to me, is starting with the customer first. And so I think this clip, a lot of people were asking me about it. I was like, I don't think this clip makes sense in the context of what Karp is saying. I think Karp's argument has never been, let's focus on the engineers and not the customer. It's, hey, the customer needs to get value, so let's give them the product. They get the value, then they pay us. And so I really think his approach is more Steve Jobs than not. But let's continue.
I know we have the best product on the market. I know customers will pay us fairly. I know that it's much more valuable than anyone will understand until they install it.
If Alex Karp wasn't so wrapped up in the technology and instead focused on the needs of the companies in the commercial markets that he wants to capture, which have changed drastically over the last year, he would see that Palantir does have some real competition.
So this right here is what I disagree with. Two things. I don't disagree with the competition part. That's where we're about to change. We're gonna talk about competition in a second. But I disagree with what Alex said right there. Alex is the name of ticker symbol U, critiquing Alex Karp, saying that if Karp wasn't so wrapped up in the technology, he would know that there's other products. I get the argument he's about to make around competition. However, I disagree. Alex is not focused on just the tech. He's focused on the value to the customer with the product, which is the whole point of their bootcamp strategy and giving the product away for free and then monetizing it. So when he says, plays the Steve Jobs clip and then plays the Alex Karp clip saying, I know we have the best product in the world, that to me is very customer focused. You're not talking about sales. You're not talking about steak dinners or PowerPoints or these proverbial things you have to do in enterprise SaaS to be able to lock multi-million-dollar contracts. You are talking about the product. And, Karp's not getting super technical in that Bloomberg interview. He's not talking about all the different nuances of the price. He's just like, the product's good. We know the product's good because we have the best engineers in the world. They're building the product. And now we want to give the product away for free. I don't know how much more customer you can get than say, we want to give you this thing for free. And if you like it, then you can pay us. Now, let's hear what Alex has to say about the competition, and then we'll discuss that.
From products like Microsoft Fabric, which can aggregate data, extract, organize, and transform it, store it in a unified data lake right on Azure. Administrators can manage permissions for that data, and users can build dashboards to analyze it in real time. Companies can even build custom solutions on top of Fabric or embed different parts of Fabric in their existing applications. Fabric isn't a concept. Microsoft announced Fabric's general availability just last month. Or how about Amazon Q, which is Amazon Web Services' new generative AI assistant. Companies can connect Q to all of their organizational data, including third-party integrations like Salesforce, Microsoft, and Google. Q uses that data to answer questions, generate insights, and take action on behalf of the user, whether that means building and testing new applications, answering specific questions about a customer or service, or helping decision makers visualize and analyze important data. And of course, Q understands existing user roles and permissions and limits its functionality accordingly. Nobody is saying that Microsoft Fabric or Amazon Q are better than Palantir Foundry. The reason that investors should worry about them anyway is because they help Palantir's target customers do more without Foundry in the first place, especially if they're already using other products and services from AWS or Azure. Oh, and by the way, over 50% of all commercial businesses that would consider Palantir Foundry already use at least one service from AWS or Azure today. Here's one more quick clip that I think really highlights everything wrong with Palantir's current market strategy.
You talked about the competitive landscape. I actually wanted to ask you about C3 AI as an example, because you come up in bidding processes with them.
Actually, look, this is a massive market. We actually don't come up with bidding processes with anyone. And I'll tell you what I think about everyone.
So you don't have any competition?
Let me just tell you about this competition thing that Wall Street analysts love. It's complete BS. This is an infinite...
This is what you want your CEO saying. I'll explain in a second.
Market, basically. Try what we're doing and try what everyone else is doing and buy the thing that creates the most value.
on an infinite market, Bloomberg Intelligence put out this research report this morning that says generative AI as a market will be 1.3 trillion in 2032. That requires compound annual growth of about 40% a year from this point over a decade. Do you see that as realistic?
Well, what I see, I don't know.
Based on the markets you operate in.
Look, these experts just make stuff up. But what we know is this is a large, basically impossible to measure market. And what we also know is everybody in the U.S. is going to find ways to become more efficient and better using software, and a lot of that software is going to be AI driven. We also know that the market over time, not in a quarter, will end up picking the best products. That's what we know.
All right. So before ticker symbol U talks, why is that the right thing for him to be saying? Look, what do you want the CEO to say? You want the CEO to say, yeah, we're in a ton of bidding wars and like Microsoft and Amazon and there's all these competitors. No. You want a CEO who Alex Karp has on the record said Palantir can be 20 times bigger than it is today. If you want that CEO to believe in a 20x vision for what the company can become, who was there from the early days in 2003 when they first started the company, of course, he's not going to buy into this whole competition, the analyst projections, where the market's going. His understanding is, look, I understand the technology. I understand the value to the consumer and the customer on the technology. I know that this is an infinite market, that every single U.S. business and eventually international business will need some type of product like this. The argument he's making is very cocky in terms of like, I don't care about the competition here, but it's underlying it is just a simple market analysis, which is if the TAM is infinite meaning, trillions of dollars that are going to be spent in this space. Dan Ives of Wedbush reported that 8 to 10% of budgets on IT next year are going to be exclusively focused on AI. That's only going to get bigger and bigger. Then Palantir just has to be in the running for some of those contracts, which, given the bootcamp strategy, I'll talk about that at the end, that's what I'm seeing happen. And so as a result of that, I don't think Karp is sounding cocky or arrogant or he's kind of just like dismissing the competition. I think his broader point is we have the best product. We now have a go-to-market strategy that is allowing the product to find scale. And we know that the market's going to pick the best product that works, because if you use some snowflake product that it's BS, or use Amazon Q, which is hallucinating, and if you type in Amazon Q hallucinating on Google, you'll see a bunch of articles that came out that Amazon Q is not that amazing yet. We haven't heard Palantir AIP really hallucinating like crazy and messing up private sensitive data for clients. Like, the market's going to pick the market's going to pick the product that works, and maybe there's going to be multiple winners, but that doesn't mean that Palantir is necessarily going to lose to some of the big people because of competition. So I don't think Karp's saying anything wrong there. I think Karp's like, I don't give a shit about the competition. I know the product we have. We're going to make an amazing product. We're going to scale it, and we're going to do what we have to do. And that's what a CEO should be saying. You can't expect a CEO who believes this could be, a $500 billion company to be worried about C3 AI, because he's so obsessed with what they've been able to do, and now he's just ready to scale it.
All right, I won't rehash the whole competition thing, but let me ask you a few different questions. Whether you believe Bloomberg's estimates that the AI market will grow by over 40% per year for the next decade, or Alex Karp when he says it's an infinite market already, then why did Palantir's most recent earnings call only show 17% revenue growth year over year? And how come their net dollar retention rate is just 107%? Net dollar retention measures how much money recurring customers spend with a company year over year. So Palantir's recurring customers spent just 7% more with them this year than last year. If it's lower because of headwinds in Europe, like their earnings report suggests, then why not show the US numbers, or the government versus commercial numbers like they already do everywhere else? And if they really have no competition in the commercial sector, then how come more than half of their revenue still comes from government customers? Hopefully you're starting to see the disconnect between their rhetoric and reality here.
Yeah, you can put those numbers together and then be like, oh, there's a big disconnect here. It's one quarter. And now it's a couple quarters in a year where we had very high interest rates. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is where the analysis, like, Palantir is doomed. I know it's a little bit of a clickbait title, but you cannot take a couple of quarters where the growth has slowed down and not even give them a chance for their newest product that is scaling like crazy with this bootcamp strategy to be able to get them back to that growth. I mean, look, if Palantir grows at 25, 30% year over year, it's going to start compounding in the next couple of years at that 30% that Karp wanted. I mean, by 2025, if they're CAGRing at 30%, will that matter if they only did 17% in 2022 or 2023? Probably not. But we got to give them time to let that happen, right? And so I don't think there's necessarily a disconnect between reality and the rhetoric. I think the rhetoric has been, we have the best product. As an investor, the stock has tripled or doubled this year, up almost 200%. If you got in at some of these low prices or you had plenty of time to DCA, it's done well for shareholders. It's objectively, that's just what happened. And now you've got to give them time. Is the valuation a little bit stretched? One could argue yes, one could argue no. But at the end of the day, they performed this year. The market's given them the multiple. Now they have to prove the growth. So we'll see what happens into 2024. We will see. But there's a lot of indications that we've been covering that it's going to be a good 2024 for Palantir, just given the growth. I think trying to say that all the commercial growth, all this stuff, government revenue, too much because of one quarter or a couple quarters of analysis, that's not the right way to think of it. On top of that, government revenue is good. Like, I don't get why people are saying, like, why is happening? The concern was there's too much government revenue, there's not enough commercial. Now the concern is like, oh, maybe the government revenue is going to go away and then Palantir is going to lose these contracts, is what Louis DePalma was saying. It's like, it is good to have sticky government revenue as they're scaling commercial. They're growing 30% year over year in the United States, 52% if you exclude SPACs. I don't really see what the problem is here. I don't understand what, sort of the disconnect is. The rest of the video basically talks about potential different ways that Palantir can, start to get developers involved and do different collaborative things, which I agree with all that stuff. So there's nothing to react to there. At the end of the day, I think it's, I think Alex from ticker symbol U is correct that Amazon and Microsoft are big competitors, and we have to be cautious of the fact that Palantir's go-to-market strategy historically has just been a lack of a sales force, which means they haven't been able to grow as fast. Two things have changed. Number one, the bootcamp strategy is here. I did a video yesterday. It's called Bootcamp's Baby. If you click it on my channel, and 614 organizations, 414 bootcamps. This is up from 325 just a couple weeks ago. Like, we are starting 1,000 participants, 27 industries. The reviews from the bootcamps are absolutely raving. I think we will see customer count grow up, even if we don't see revenue materially increase from the guidance that they gave going into Q4. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Then we'll reevaluate. But I think that's the case. I mean, there's no evidence to say to the contrary for that, which means the kind of thesis of Alex's video, which is that Palantir doesn't understand going to market or focusing on the customer, I think is denied by the fact that they're giving the product for free. And they're doing a bootcamp strategy that is solely focused on how do we take the customer's data, build them something in 8 hours, give it back to them, not show them a Zoom presentation, and then they get a couple months to work on it for free, and then they get to pay us. I don't understand. Someone in the comments help me try to understand how that is not customer focused. That to me is customer focused. Then the question becomes, okay, if that's customer focused, what if Microsoft and Amazon have too much distribution and they take up all your market? I just think that's a silly argument. Microsoft and Amazon are going to have massive markets no matter what market they compete in. The TAM is going to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And as I've said historically on this channel, Microsoft and Amazon introducing the concept of having a Fabric or an Amazon Q in your enterprise, that is just enabling more people to understand, oh, this is what Palantir, AIP, and Foundry does. And then the question becomes, can those people use Microsoft or Amazon and not use Palantir? A lot of them probably will. But there's going to be a certain percentage of them that don't want Microsoft's or Fabric or Amazon's Q because they don't like it. It's not better than Palantir, AIP, and Foundry. And so at that point, they're going to look for alternatives. And when they look for alternatives, they will likely find Palantir because it's the best product in the market. That's not to say that Palantir doesn't have a threat for Microsoft and Amazon taking their lunch. 1,000%. Sales and distribution matters a lot more than the product, especially in enterprise SaaS. So I'm not saying that's not a concern. I'm just saying let's give them the next 6 to 8 quarters to prove that they have a go-to-market strategy that is actually effective. I don't think Karp is the type of guy to stand up a year from now saying, sorry, we suck. We don't have a sales market strategy. We're losing to Amazon and Microsoft. He's just not that type of guy. That's not who he is. He's a winner. Peter Thiel's a winner. They don't lose in that respect. And I think they have something up their sleeves. This bootcamp strategy obviously has been working pretty well from the numbers we're seeing for them to be able to really get into entire organizations. And more importantly, this is the last thing I'll say, they're attacking entire industries. I mean, the NHS contract is a perfect example. Like, Palantir is attacking an entire industry with healthcare. And so, yeah, it was $480 million. That was fine. That's a good contract. But if they transform the NHS, they're going to transform many other industries that need to be transformed, that know that a socialized healthcare system is not sustainable in terms of efficiency and effectiveness, and Palantir is going to be the answer. So to me, it's let's give them a year. Let's see how they transform different organizations, how that leads them to transforming different industries, and let's see if this bootcamp strategy works. That's not to say we can't be afraid of the competition, but Palantir is not really worried about the competition. They're worried about focusing on themselves. And that's the culture in the organization. That's the culture you want in an organization. Palantir is a speculative investment compared to something like Microsoft or Amazon. That's why the potential of it is likelier to be higher than an Amazon or Microsoft investment over the next decade. But that's the point. That's why you're taking a risk and with this investment. And the goal is, if that company is executing against that risk, then the investment might end up being successful. And in this world that we're going into with AI, I don't think Microsoft and Amazon having competing AI platforms is necessarily going to ruin Palantir. It would if they didn't have a bootcamp strategy. It would if they were still arrogant about the sales culture they've had for the past 20 years. It would if Karp, didn't acknowledge that there was a sales problem, that we needed to have a different approach to how we go to market. But all of that stuff has been well documented, has changed over the past year. And so now it's just a question of seeing where they can take it. All right, that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. DailyPalantir.com/subscribe. Free Palantir email newsletter every day. Make sure you subscribe to that. And this was my reaction to Alex from ticker symbol U, good friend of mine. I think he had valid points in this video. Some of them I disagree with, but overall, yeah, there's competition. And now Palantir's out there and they got to compete. And we will end up seeing what happens going into 2024. Thank you guys for being here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one.